Okay. Hello, it's Rafael Gutierrez. Welcome to our channel again. And today I'm going to talk about a couple different things. This video will be a little shorter than usual. But before I actually mention anything, I should mention that on February 24th, 2018 at 10:30, I'm going to be doing a book signing in the Valley Center Library in San Diego. If you're in the area and can come by, please do so. I will be having some of my Off the Rails book, the one that you see behind me, which has a really nice picture on it. But if you do have any of my other works and you want me to sign it, I'll go ahead and sign it. If you have any of the books I have, you can tell me, and I'll go ahead and sign those too. Now, there is something that I actually want to mention, and that is I tend to read a lot. I'll pick up anything that I can, I'll read it. And if I find it has value, I will actually buy a lot of it. And I'm actually talking about magazines. So there's one magazine that I've noticed I have bought since pretty much since I found the magazine. I actually have all their issues, and I actually do still buy it, and it's this Classical Fighting Arts. And the reason I'm mentioning it isn't just because I do love the magazine, but there is an article by Graham Noble, The Adventures of Leopold the Great. Now, when I actually first saw it, I thought it was going to be Leopold, the nobleman that we've actually all read about, but it actually is about someone who is pretty much was one of the people who was, you could say, in many ways, a fraud in martial arts back in the 1917. And it's a really great article, and I think it's something that most of us who are involved in martial arts should read, because what it shows us is it shows us something that people want to believe now. We actually want to it shows us that something that we want to believe now is incorrect. What I mean by that is this: a lot of people think, oh, we have so many more frauds in martial arts, and we probably do have more numbers of martial art frauds, but percentage-wise, it probably is less. And the reason behind that is this: if you think about it, let's say you wanted to see if I was who I claimed I would. You can actually go and put R.H. Gutierrez, MD, Google it, and find out, okay, is this person really the person he claims to be? And someone is bound to have either heard or know something about me. Some of it may be good things, some of it may be bad things. Someone may actually go and see that, yes, this is a guy, he teaches, right now, nutrition in City College and martial arts, and people can say, well, yes, this guy actually seems to be the person he claims to be. Today we have the access to the internet, and it's one of those things. If you fall for a McDojo or you fall for a martial arts fraud, you really have no one to blame but yourself. If you're willing to if you're willing to be if you're willing to be the emperor without any clothes, well, that's your fault. You had all access available to see if people are who they claim to be. Now, a lot of times people will lie to you, but they'll do it in a way which it's not illegal. For instance, I was looking at someone who claimed to be a exercise science expert. They didn't claim a degree, they just said they were an exercise science expert. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Anyone can claim to be whatever they want. But if this person was honest enough to not claim any degrees, they just said they were an expert. But if someone says, yes, I have a PhD in this discipline, and they don't, then you end up getting into really fraud. People can't come after them. There are some people, by the way, who will give themselves PhDs. You can make your own school and say that you have a PhD in anything you want from your school, and it's really hard for people to actually see if it's right unless they Google where your school is. But what ends up happening is this: a lot of people will claim to be experts, but they don't necessarily have the background. And some people will say, well, yeah, but they're an expert because they did this long enough. Well, I will tell you something that one of my professors actually in med school once said. He said, there are nurses who have worked for 40 years in the hospital, and they can actually make diagnoses better than some people. It may be a first-year medical student, but that nurse doesn't claim to be a doctor, and there's a reason for it. He hasn't gone through the training. And that's actually the truth. Someone who may have the information, but they can't claim to do it because of that, because they don't have the information. Now, I will tell you, as a professor, I have taught different levels of education, and I'm not picking on anyone because any type of field. It's just what is. Uh, I have taught at a doctoral candidate program. I've taught at the PA program. I've taught at respiratory therapy program, and I've taught it in nursing and nursing assistant programs. And what I can say is, even though the classes may be the same, the level of each class will be completely different. What I mean by that is this. If you're going for a doctorate in exercise nutritional science and you're required to take an anatomy class, it will be at a doctoral level, or at least it should be. There are some places where it's kind of shaky. If you're getting an associate's degree, it will be at the associate's level, or at least it should be. Now, the reason I say it should be is because we are getting some really weird things happening in education. Education has been cut to a point where a lot of times people are no longer even looking for, is this person qualified to teach this class? What they're looking for is, can I get this person to teach a class? And so sometimes I will actually say, teaching at community colleges, universities, and doctoral programs, I've noticed that some of the people who are teaching what they call the basic sciences don't have degrees in what they should. I've actually gone to some places where they're having doctoral candidates taking classes from people with master's degrees, which really, you have some people, oh, well, masters cannot know what this. Well, again, the master's degree doesn't have it. If you're getting someone who has a master's degree teaching doctoral candidates and you're saying that's okay, well, then why not go a bit lower and say someone with an associate could obviously teach a class if they've been doing it? The answer is no, they don't have the background for what they're doing, and they're not going to the level that they're supposed to. For instance, when I was in med school, in our anatomy class, we had orthopedic surgeons come in and teach aspects of anatomy. We had people who did obstetrics and gynecology teaching those aspects. Each person who taught a section in anatomy as a doctoral candidate was a specialist in that area. And so the one thing that happens is, as a doctor, maybe I won't go into surgery, but if I'm going to study anatomy as a medical doctor, you want to know it you want to be taught by someone who is an expert in that specific field. You can't have someone who's below that area teaching. Likewise, in nursing, if you're teaching an anatomy class, you want someone who has some experience in the clinical area teaching you anatomy. If not, what are they teaching you? But I'll get off of that, and I will talk a bit more about something else I found. One of the things I've been finding is, as I have been doing these videos, I've learned a lot. I've actually learned probably more for myself than I'm actually giving you guys. And it's not that I don't want to give you this stuff. It's that by going through processes, you find stuff that you didn't understand before. And as I'm getting to this point, a lot of times, as I'm getting to these different things, I'm looking at everything that I do, and I start thinking, well, what's the next level I can take? Where else can I take this? And that's actually what I ask you guys a lot of times is, sometimes I don't even know what questions to research, not because I'm some giant genius, because I don't even know what I don't really know. And so I will ask you guys, if you kids can, let me know if there's any topic, if on the comments below, just put down, I'd really want to know why you should tap out when you're in a arm bar. Yeah, I actually did that one already, but if you're interested in something similar like that, that would be something that would be great for me. I can actually show you how different things work. But one of the things that I found is you can only really talk up to the level, you can only teach or talk about up to the level where you are. And this is one of the problems that I'm finding in a lot of videos that I find throughout the area. Now, I'm going to actually mention one which I saw was in National Geographic's Fight Science. Now, a lot of you may have actually seen some of these videos, and some of you may have actually known that some physicists have criticized these videos for different reasons. Now, the one I'm actually going to criticize is one where they were actually measuring the force of hits. What they did is they took a punching bat, some sort of striking mechanism. I'll use my cup to show you, and they put a speedometer on here, which tells you how fast it's moving. Now, The idea is this. Now, someone hits this bag, it's going to move. And then with the speedometer, we can actually take the mass of the bag, its acceleration, and what we have is we have total force. Now, they also measured the limb that people were hitting with. And I remember that they said one person had the strongest because they produced the most amount of force because it moved. And as martial artists, the question I would ask you is, do you want to be able to move something or cause damage? These are two different things. And I'm not going to say that the people who did it wouldn't all cause damage. What I am actually going on is how the people who actually did the video, the researchers, didn't understand some of the basic stuff they should have. Now, let's take this cup. If I hit this cup and it moves, well, okay, that's fine. But what if I hit this cup so hard that instead of moving, it crumples? How much acceleration will it have on this side? Well, if you think about it, this breaks, there's no acceleration on this side. And that's one of the things I saw with the bags is they got hit, and the bags, instead of moving first, they actually collapsed on themselves, then came back, and then moved, and you had a little bit of movement. You didn't have that mass acceleration. And that's one of the things that I thought was interesting is, if you think about it, if you hit something and it doesn't cause any deformation on the bag, what that means is the entire force is going into the bag and moving, but no force is lost, which means no damage is done. In essence, you actually, with these big amounts of pushes, if you don't have the twist, if you don't have the deformation, you're not going to end up getting an understanding of what type of damage you have. Now, if you're dealing with martial arts, if you're dealing with a fighting art, are you more interested in moving someone or causing damage? And that's something that each individual will have to ask themselves. Now, if you actually did watch this video, I recommend you go back and watch, because if you're a martial artist and you've ever been kicked, you actually have an idea of how hard someone can kick. I actually have friends who are in Taekwondo, and they can develop a lot of power. All they do is kick. What are they going to do? What's going to happen? Muay Thai, again, you have people who can do a lot of power. Capoeira, great martial art. It can develop a lot of power as well. But the thing is, if you actually look at the deformation, you see something kind of interesting. Now, I'm going to tell you this. This is actually just an equation. Force cannot, if you remember the laws of motion, you have the force cannot be destroyed or created. It can only be converted. Which means when these people actually looked at what was going on, this person had a kick. And the kick was moving at a certain speed with a certain mass behind it and a certain acceleration. When it hit, the force on the other side of the bag, if we decide that there's no deformation and no damage taking place, it should move with the same amount of force on the other side. So we should be able to take the mass of the bag and the acceleration of the bag, and it should be roughly even. It won't be even because you're going to lose stuff from friction. I'm not going to get into that. Now, if it's not happening, that means something's happening. If the force is different on one side than the other, that means you're losing force. That means the force is going somewhere else. That's actually one thing that they didn't do in these videos, which really always bothered me, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And so what ends up happening is a lot of times these videos, especially when they're done with people trying to prove something or see, when they're trying to prove something, they're able to, oh, well, this actually shows us that what I'm looking at is this. They don't look at the peak force. Now, when I did the punch, I actually was seeing the peak force. The reason is this. Imagine if I can hit you with a bag about this big, and I can hit, that bag is going to have 700 pounds of pressure per square inch. Now, look at the size of the bag. That means that where that bag hits, the entire surface, the pounds per square inch is going to be spread on that area. Let's say we take that bag, and instead of having the entire bag hit you, we actually take something and we put one point where it's coming in. Instead of having a big bag here coming in and causing deformation and going in, we now have just one point. What this does is it pretty much, instead of giving you 700 pounds per square inch, that's no longer, instead of being, let's say, 4 inches, it's now in a case of being 1 square inch. 4 square inches being 1 square inch. And so what ends up happening is that same 700 pounds of pressure is now concentrated in one area. So you're going to get a lot bigger numbers. What does that mean for us? It means, pretty much what it means is you're going to have a more penetrating force in one area, which can cause damage to internal organs. If we're just looking, and so that's one of the big things, if we're just looking at force, things kind of change a little bit because of the way force actually works. We really want to look at power, which is force divided by applied time. So the faster, the less time you actually have the force applied, the more power you actually end up getting. I hope this makes sense, and you can help me out if you're in the San Diego area and can do the Valley Center Library 10:30 on February 24th. I'd look forward to seeing you there. If you can't and are interested in helping the channel out, I do have the books for sale on Amazon. If you have great questions that you think I could answer or by researching it, again, please let me know. And if you are involved in publication and would like to have me look at your article, your books or your articles or anything, I'm more than happy to look at them. You may not get, it may not be the, you may not get the review that you want, but you will get an honest review. Hope you enjoy this and have a nice day.